Good day, everyone, and welcome to the journey. I am Reverend Bobby, and today I have one of my good life friends. Our paths just crossed, and we've been buddies for a long time, Mr. Bruce Montgomery. How are you today, Bruce? Hey!
Hey, I'm doing just fine. Everything's wonderful.
Everything's wonderful, and while everything is wonderful with my friend Bruce, and we having a good day, don't forget to log on to the channel Gospel of Robert, capital GOSPELOF, capital ROBERT. Put the at sign in front. Subscribe so you get notifications to when we put up good stuff. And you can click on the live category once you get to the station to see previously recorded segments of the journey. So, Bruce, tell the people a little bit about Bruce. What gets you going? What's him about, and all the good stuff that I already know.
All right. Well, happy to be here today. Thank you so much for creating this opportunity so that good information and good experiences can be shared with the world. As you said, we are friends from back in the day on the south side of Chicago. I'm a lifelong Chicagoan and been here all my life through my journey. And both on the west side, I like to say I'm a bi-coastal brother. I spent the first several years of my life on the west side in the Garfield Park area. My family and extended family were all in that area around Washington Boulevard and Sacramento and California and Kedzie. And grew up, my father and mother both were entrepreneurial, and my father had business activity and real estate on the west side. But we moved when it was time for me to go to school over to the south side of Chicago, and that's where I began my educational journey. After leaving Marillac House on the west side for preschool, I went to elementary school on the south side of Chicago in the Chatham area, both Chicago Public School alum of Jane A. Neal and Dixon Elementary School. And then
I thought
later,
you was going to say Ruggles.
no, I was very close to Ruggles. In fact, my uncle was principal at Ruggles High School. Ruggles Grammar School. And so many friends of mine, I went to one of my church experiences was being in the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts at Crear Memorial Presbyterian Church on 81st and Calumet, right down the street from Ruggles. And so I had all kind of friends that went to Ruggles. And the wonderful thing, Robert, when you and I were growing up on the south side of Chicago, is we just had friends all over. Went to every school, every high school. We had friends through all the different things that we did, church, Boy Scouts, park, Little League. Just a wonderful, wonderful experience. Really the golden era of as the African-American community was first moving out of the Bronzeville area, out of the restricted, tight community into these other areas. It was the boomer time where our parents that were school teachers, bus drivers, lawyers, doctors, dentists, plumbers, architects, just created a wonderful, safe, holistic space for young people like ourselves to grow up and experience the best of everything. And so, again, I had friends just at so many Catholic schools, private schools, public schools, and we all felt wonderful to experience these different communities and grow up in these communities.
And one of the things that our parents did do was they made sure that we had other young people our age in our life. My mom was in a club called Les Chaperons. They call it the Mothers Club, and they just would have us together, and we do things and go to Dunbar, have a swim night, bring potluck food, and that's the way we interacted with people across the city and friends. And how important has that been to you, having people and friends all across the city and knowing people all across the city as you moved on in life?
Well, it certainly gave me the curiosity to want to experience the richness of Chicago. Chicago is a city like none other. Literally every neighborhood is a different entity unto itself.
True that.
And you know, you could just travel a few minutes and it's like you're in another country, whether it's Eastern Europe, whether it's south of the border, whether it's Caribbean island or wherever. You go to these different neighborhoods, and many people do not benefit from that multicultural experience. They kind of stay where they're rooted. But because I got that kind of bi-coastal start, I stayed on that kind of track. So again, having friends on the west side, north side, south side, east side, you know, it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I think it allowed me to feel very comfortable and confident as I went older. Interesting thing is most of our younger experience was quite segregated.
Yeah.
Highly, you know, 99.9% African American.
It was
in schools, and we were fortunate. Now we had a mixture of teachers, but we had some of the greatest Black educators you could possibly imagine, and not realizing it at the time. But many of our educators were, you know, had master's degree, doctor's degree, but were teaching in community schools because they maybe didn't have other opportunities coming back from HBCUs and other institutions. But they came back and poured back into us, and so we benefited quite mightily. And so again, I think this has served me well as I went. When I went to high school, I flipped the script and went to a predominantly. My mother put me in a private school, and it was predominantly not African American.
You was at the lab school, right?
I was at the University of Chicago
lab school. Yeah,
the lab school, and so that was a very.
I knew that's why you so brilliant.
but no, I was brilliant because of everything that happened before I got to lab. But it just gave me a lot of confidence to be able to go into that kind of setting and feel very good about myself, who I was, where I came from, what I knew, what I was prepared to deal with, and so I was able to be very successful in that environment too. I was certainly ready to play a bunch of sports and basketball and have a good time. But I made a lot of great friends there at Lab, and then continued on my experience on to Hampton University, and then later to Northwestern, and then much later in life, I went to business school at Tuck Business School at Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire. So I've had a wide range of academic experiences over my life, and you know, lifelong learning is what it's all about. You and I, like you say, our paths have crossed a number of different times during our journey. But you know, one of my great experiences is to stumble across the spiritual education that I was so fortunate to get exposed to with Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman and Christ Universal Temple. In fact, I grew up exactly 4 blocks from the Jewel Box, Johnny Coleman's church at 86 and State Street. My household home was 86 and Prairie, 8601 South Prairie, and the Jewel Box was 8601 South State.
I know every Sunday we would come to church, and we would turn down to come to Career Rock. We would turn down State Street. There'd always be cars and stuff out there in front of the Jewel.
Exactly. I remember when the building was built. In fact, one of my neighbors, Bush Construction, Ernest Bush, he built both the original building and the addition to the building. And I think as young people, we probably played in the construction site.
I know you did, because we used to play in the construction site, make stilts and stuff out of wood.
That's right.
And all kinds of stuff.
Punch little quarters out of the electrical boxes.
I remember somebody jammed up the bus one day coming home from Lindblom, putting that stuff down.
Putting those fake quarters in the box. You know, we did. We did all kinds of things, but that was a wonderful experience. And again, I had no clue that institution would play such a pivotal role in my life later on, as I came to find out what was going on. In fact, after I was coming back to Chicago from Hampton and being away from the community, and you know, when you go to college, you kind of flip the script on. It's not the same neighborhood, it's not the same running buddies. You kind of are off on another tangent, and so getting connected. I used to go to the Wednesday evening program that Johnny would do. And that really served as an outreach mechanism that was quite brilliant in her strategy to connect with people like myself that, was open and receptive to learning new things and getting exposed to things that could do us some beneficial good in our growing of consciousness of spirit, soul, and body.
Now the spiritual walk is it's a very cool thing. A lot of people, when they ask me, well, what could we do about this and what could we do about that? I said it's all about, the development of the spiritual man and the spiritual woman. Because once you develop that spiritual man and spiritual woman, you're not going to go around be wanting to blow nobody up. How important is that, Bruce? I mean, how important is that development of that spiritual self?
Well, it's very, very important. I think, again, in this, the way society curved towards the me society, the I got mine, you get yours. That was very frustrating to me. I didn't feel comfortable with that. I didn't feel like, you should climb over anybody's back to get what you want. So that just never sat right with me. And so getting connected to the spiritual fundamentals of you got to love yourself and you got to love your neighbor as yourself. If you don't love yourself, your neighbor's in all the trouble they could be and possibly be in, because you don't know how to respect and treat yourself. How are you going to learn how to respect and treat anybody else? So discovering the discoveries that were exposed to me about having being a threefold being a person that is in fact spirit. We are spiritual beings living in a spiritual world governed by spiritual laws, and that regardless of what the appearance may be, yes. We are in fact spiritual beings. And so getting exposed to that kind of grounding was very, very helpful for me, because again, the corporate rat race, the flying around, the moving real quick, the being up the corporate ladder and all those kinds of things will keep you on a tailspin. What happened during our lifetime is so much of the corporate business structure, Chicago was being disinvested. Right. Companies like Sears and many, many others were fleeing Chicago. They did not want to have anything to do with downtown or the south side or the west side, let alone they want to do it downtown. They want nothing to do with the west side or the south side. But again, this was the cornerstone of prosperity that built Chicago into what it was. Many of the greatest names in Chicago's business history matriculated from those west side corridors along Roosevelt or North Avenue or Lake Street or Madison Street. But as they ran to the suburban areas and left our communities for their own devices, it was a very precarious period of time. And so as we were, like I said, the baby boomers were coming back home looking to get involved with job opportunities, many of us found that we could not find employment in Chicago. We had to work in suburban areas for all the corporate headquarters were in Oak Brook and Schaumburg and Libertyville and all these different places. So you were, driving, 2 hours to get to work, 2 hours home from work, all kinds of crazy traffic. And that has a wear and tear on you. And certainly there is a spiritual dichotomy, because these experiences that these employers are not necessarily giving back to what we would call community the same way we would expect to be engaged with community in the community that we talked about growing up in, where we're involved with, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Little League, Girl Scouts, proms, cotillions, mother, father, daughter clubs, all those kinds of things. Those things fray when you are pulled to be on the road and out of town and carrying a suitcase and going from one side to the other. You don't have the same level of connection that we used to have. And so that's one of the things that spiritual awakening brings back, is that what really is of value is that which satisfies the soul and nurtures the complete person. And so that getting exposed and educated in that experience was a tremendously beneficial thing for me. And I like to say it's the reason I'm still on the planet.
Well, I know it is. I know it is for me. You know, the reason I'm still here on the planet, because I needed something to hang on as we mature, matriculate. Like you said, the wear and tear. I had 13 state territory from Louisiana to South Dakota, you know, waking up in cities. I'm like, where am I?
That's right.
And it does take a toll, and you need something to have a grounded on. Plus, I found for me, you can always work these principles into whatever it is you're doing out here in the world.
Well, you really have to.
Yeah.
That's at first when I was pursuing spiritual education, understanding the principles of living a healthy, happy, and prosperous life. As most of us, we would set our spirituality, our religious principles, we set them off to the side as we pursued these corporate goals. But the more we make that consciousness part of our daily life practice, so prayer, meditation, thinking on things that are sustaining, and then incorporating those same principles into our human interactions, our business dealings, our contractual obligations, our relationships. When you allow spirit to say, this is for your highest good, and you start bowing to spirit and say, no, don't go right, go left, then you start trusting in that capacity to lead you in directions that only have your highest and best outcome in mind. So not my will, but thy will be done.
But it's like a muscle that we have to exercise.
Absolutely.
Because you know, I know in my case, I'm not going to put this on you, but I used to be trying to know something. And along the way, you know, I saw what I knew because it bopped me in my head from what I knew. And you have to have something different, something else then to be that supportive piece of yourself that you already are, but we don't necessarily look at it that way. And why do you think that is? Is it the outer trappings of all the things?
Well, absolutely. Again, but you know, one of the things that, as I went through the spiritual education that the Universal Foundation for Better Living and the Christ Universal Temple Johnny Coleman Institute provided, it really gave me a tremendous respect for the upbringing and the connections that I had in my life. My grandfather was a Church of God in Christ minister. I spent a lot of time with my grandmother and grandfather. As far as I was concerned, the only person I knew for a fact that was an actual angel that I experienced was my grandmother, and I had no gray area whatsoever.
No qualms about speaking that forth boldly.
That's right. But again, you know, you came to appreciate and respect it. So my teachings and my experience coming up through the teachings I had really tied me back into how much God has kept me in the palm of His hand, and how much I was so blessed to have that kind of experience with the grandparents that I had. In fact, when I was in elementary school, I used to brag because I had two living great grandmothers.
Yeah.
And I just thought I was Mr. Cool because I said, I got two great grandmothers. I don't just have one, I got two great grandmothers. And so that I really came to really appreciate that. And then how close my mother and her sisters were was very much a blessing. And the family stayed very close. It was a small family. It wasn't big, but it was very close knit and stayed together. So again, it let me know that the things that are of real value is life, is love, is wisdom, is peace, is joy, and that is yours by right of consciousness. It is your birthright to be prosperous and healthy and whole and complete. And you don't have to chase and run after it. You're running after something that's already inside of you. Yeah. And so I'm to me, the teachings have reintroduced me to myself, if you will, and reintroduced me to the wisdom, like Johnny used to say, handed down through the ages. And yes, it was taught by a Wayshore, but it was taught by your great aunt. It was taught by your great grandmother. It was taught by your mama, that they knew some things. And otherwise, we would not be here today unless we were standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah. And the interconnectivity of the community, and the people that knew, we used to think that they was nosy. They was looking out for us. They was our safety nets by being in our business. I'll share a story. One of my Morehouse boys, I was taking them across the street one time to meet my grandmama. My grandmama come out the back and says, Eddie Whitlock. Me and Eddie looking at each other, but she had Eddie in her friendship, preschool. And they lived in Gary before his dad passed and his mom moved the family to California. And a couple of my Morehouse buddies and I, as we talk, there's 6 degrees to separation, man, is zero. In our
Absolutely.
community. There is there's no separation in anything, but especially in our community, Black community, man, it's about that zero. And it just gives me more than hope, because I've seen the progress. I've seen, my great-great-grandfather take a railroad car that he found in Chattanooga because they couldn't own no property. Star Friendship Baptist, where they gave Morehouse space on first class as a Spelman was in the basement. And we have such a rich history, man, and it trips me out that people don't know it.
Well, it really does. And that was one of the things that I wanted to pivot when I was coming out of the University of Chicago Lab School, was I felt that I did not have a big exposure to African-American history that I wanted. I didn't have exposure to my own history, to world history. I saw a lot of stuff that was left out. And so going to a school that was founded by Booker T. Washington, Tuskegee and Hampton were kind of sister schools that the great Booker T established. And it was exactly what I kind of thought it was going to be. It was just wonderful to be in that setting. But it was something that we in the North did not know anything about. The fact that people started telling me, well, my grandfather went here and his father went here and my uncle went here. And I'm like, damn, did everybody, your mama go here? And they said, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
because that was what it was institutionalized.
That's right. They institutionalized that history and that legacy. Now, there were some things that took them a little while to kind of catch up on. But again, we have to recognize that, like you say, we are one with this experience. And so you don't have to go to Morehouse to love Morehouse. You don't have to go to Howard to love Howard. You don't have to go. This is your place. There's a connection there. Somebody in your sphere and your family are connected to that. And somebody that's mentored you and made a difference in your life has a connection with that one experience. And so, again, we as a community need to, especially right now, wrap arms around. One of my high school classmates was the right-hand man of the original CEO founder, Lonnie Bunch, who was the first executive director of the African American Museum at the Smithsonian, and later the head of the whole Smithsonian. And my friend, was there through that whole process, from the first ideas to the drawings to the actual curation and everything. Saw that process from beginning to end. And when my family got a chance to go to DC this summer to experience the African American History Museum, it was just awe-inspiring. Mm-hmm. So again, we have to take direct liberties. And one of the things I'm involved with right now is there's a group that I happen to serve on the board here in Chicago called the Bronzeville Black Metropolis National Heritage Area, which is the recognition that this area that we call Bronzeville in Chicago is so culturally, historically, every kind of way significant to everything that America is.
It's so rich.
Chicago. It's so rich.
It's so rich.
But
man.
It's up to us to codify that, to establish that. So I'm so fortunate to be with a group of people that were able to pursue getting it recognized that Bronzeville is in fact a national heritage area. It's received that designation from the National Park Service, and we've got a little small group that's out here saying, let's curate this history, let's codify this history, let's pull all of this together, because people come from all over the world and want to know, how is it that all of these musicians came out of DuSable? How is it that all of these great scientists came out of Providence Hospital? How is it that all these entrepreneurs were along King Drive and South Park and Cottage Grove and State Street? And so this is, like you said, Bobby, if we understand who we really are and what is in our DNA, in our spiritual DNA, we can't do anything but move forward in success and in strength, because we can look at how far we have, how celebrated we are, and how far we've come and how far we have yet to go. But the talent we have is beyond measure.
And it's personal, because John Coleman's daddy was over there at Providence. Doc was over there. We be drinking his liquor and he be talking stories. And next thing I know, we was at an honoring him thing over at the library on 95th Street.
That's right.
And I'm like, Doc, you never said anything about this. And he's like, this is what we had to do, Bobby, to survive. My friend TC, mama and dad, grandmama and them lived on Calumet, 33rd. Grandmama and them, she's Butterbean and Susie's, granddaughter. And we had the ministry together. She used to tell me Jackie Wilson and all them used to come over because they had a music room upstairs. And she said they was just people, Step and Fetch it all. Then she said they was just people, Bobby. Yeah, they came over, but they were just people. And it's a personal thing that we have, a personal connection. And you and I were talking the other day about when we were growing up, the banks, the funeral homes, the stores, and everything that we had here in Chicago, in the Black community. Before we start taking our money outside the community and just investing in ourselves, how did that happen, man?
Well, it happened because there were the restricted covenants, and so we couldn't live south of 63rd Street. We couldn't live east of Cottage Grove. We couldn't live west of Halsted Street, or even going into Inglewood. But as we started to move, we dissipated and we scattered. But I'll tell you, Robert, there's a lot to be excited about in terms of the reclamation of our history. I can tell you right now that in Bronzeville, these communities are alive with talent, entrepreneurial talent, teaching talent. You and I were talking about how these young people are going into theological seminaries, going into schools, getting advanced education in these areas, and returning to these communities, building new institutions for faith, for health, for mental wellness, for physical wellness. And so we've got to now use this platform, just like you're creating, to spread the good news about, because you're not going to find it on the big boxes.
You're not, and it was kind of a way of life for us when we came up. One of my boys, he was talking about all the stuff that went on in New York. You could go to get the Christian stuff. You could go to get the Black nationalist stuff. In the afternoon, it was just all kinds of things about us and the importance of us that we're not going to get anywhere. And it's so important, Bruce. And just one thing I'd like to say about you before our time run out here. In the spiritual realm, man, and the spiritual stuff, you used to write some of the most wonderful affirmations, man. Was that just a natural thing? Do you write too? Do you write also?
Well, again, we are so fortunate to come up again. We think about the great Reverend Allison Harrell. We think about so many wonderful teachers that we were exposed to. And so again, I think, but I find so much inspiration in great stories like, Curtis Mayfield. Curtis Mayfield, a young man growing up in Cabrini Green, never really educated beyond high school, and was such a force of creativity and capacity. And so again, when we, right now, a good friend of mine is the daughter of Oscar Brown Jr.
Mhm.
And we're about to celebrate 100 years of the recognition of his birthday and living in this country, and the prolificness of these individuals like Oscar Brown Jr. and Curtis Mayfield. And so again, it's through, and I guess what I'm having right now is an appreciation of culture, our culture, our artistic sensibility, our we think of Gwendolyn Brooks and all the others. It's time for us to completely reclaim, and I'm glad to say that right here we're about to open up this Obama Presidential Center. Another good friend of mine, Theaster Gates, is opening up some new art-based centers. It's time for us as a community to get excited about our art, our culture, our history, our legacy, our health, our wealth and well-being, and tie it all together in a wonderful basket and say, you know what? If you guys want to run this this experiment called America off the rails and down the toilet, that's where you're going. We're not going there with you because we've got too much conscious awareness of our divinity to want to be a part of something that's not expanding in goodness and wholeness and well-being. So I'm happy to say that I think this is a wonderful time for what you're doing, and what we're doing is to say that we need to write, we need to read, we need to choreograph, we need to compose, we need to play and perform, because in our life, culture, art, music, dance, business, health, it's all the same thing.
It's what it's all about. It's who we are, and it's the contribution we've made to this United States. Listen, thank you so much. That half an hour went quick, didn't it?
Well,
but you're gonna come back. Don't worry, you're gonna come back. And people, thank Bruce for coming and sharing this knowledge. Make sure to log on Gospel of Robert, capital GOSPELOF, capital ROBERT. Put the @ in front. Subscribe. Look at the live previously recorded segments and learn a little bit of something. Bruce, give us a little bit of something to hold the people till next time we come.
Well, I just want people to say that, let's use these platforms, whether it's the platform like Robert has created. It's not the platform, it's how we use it. So let's not be fearing anything. If we can use social platforms like YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram for our betterment, then let's put content there that's inspired from the inside out, from a heart first basis, to grow and weave the fabric of community that is connected in love and spirit and truth. And I say, giving God all the honor and all the praise, we are worthy to win, and we will win. Putting our faith with works is life. And so
that's my friend Bruce, y'all. I'll claim him. And
okay,
from
good.
Bruce Montgomery, thank you so much, and myself.
All righty.
We just wish, hope, pray, and demand from the universe.
Amen.
That you journey well from here.
Hey, good.
Peace. God bless you, Bruce.
All right. Thank you.